everyone, and welcome to the Engineering Manager podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Tijamulia. Today, we're diving into the world of IT outsourcing with a special focus on India. We're joined by Ashish Jain, a renowned expert in the field of outsourcing, and I am privileged acquaintance of mine as we've known each other here for several months. He is, I would say, knowledgeable on the topic, has helped many startups, larger companies navigate this field of outsourcing. So we're super excited to have you, Ashish, here with us today.
Likewise, Stephen. Thank you. I'm excited as well.
And we'll dive in here for our audience, engineering managers who are contemplating outsourcing India. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Hopefully, we'll answer all those questions for you today. Let's start talking a little bit about outsourcing. What are the primary drivers and benefits, Ashish? Can you give the audience a more complete picture from our point of view?
Sure. If we look at Steve, there are a lot of driving factors, but primary driving factors are the cost benefits and the abundance of skills, the large pool of skill resources that India is offering. Those are the two key primary factors.
Yeah, and what are some reasons you've seen from other companies that you've worked with that why do they outsource? What benefits do they see from outsourcing?
Outsourcing in general, if you look at it, is seeking help in with some of the partner agencies, which are beyond your core focus of the business, core activities of business, and which in turn obviously gives you access to the experts of those specific areas, whether it be IT or non-IT. And if it comes with a greater cost benefit, then it becomes pretty helpful in running a successful and easily scalable business.
So getting the right experts and then hopefully get costs. Now let's talk a little bit about the skill sets and expertise that's found in India compared to other locations. Tell a little bit more. Why should someone choose to outsource technical skills to India versus somewhere else?
Well, just to give you a number, like IT outsourcing as a whole ecosystem, more than 50% of it happens to India globally. And the very reason behind this is the huge pool of untapped skilled manpower. India, at this very moment that we are speaking, is the largest populated country in the world. And out of that, with a population of more than 1.4 billion people, out of which more than 60% are under the age of 30. That means because of the large number of population and the large engineering colleges as well, it helps India becomes the quite obvious choice because of the ease of access to these talented resources, which obviously I can talk more as we delve deeper about. It's not just about those numbers, but those also need to be nurtured in the right manner. Also need to have cooperative and supportive government policies as that we see in India.
Yeah, that's a big number. That's a lot of outsourcing going to India. Tell us a little bit about the infrastructure for those that are experienced, those engineering managers who outsource to India already. This is something not new to them, but for those that maybe are contemplating, haven't done it yet, but are worried that the infrastructure may not be as sound, may not be able to compete with other locations. What does the infrastructure look like in India? Give us some detail there.
Of course, yes, infrastructure is obviously is the integral part of any business house, any industry that is there. So more than 10% of India's GDP comes from the IT exports, which means the government is quite serious about enhancing this, supporting this ecosystem, which obviously means we need to strengthen the infrastructure. When we look back around more than a decade ago, the speed was what? 5 Mbps. Today, you can easily find more than 500 Mbps of internet speed. So that has been strengthened. Plus, if you look at the policies, like we have special IT parks as well as special economic zones wherein government is encouraging to establish offices in those IT parks, which obviously are having the great workspaces backed up by the internet as well as the right electricity connectivity as well. For example, majority of the bigger states in India, they have an average of 40 gigawatts of constantly supplied electricity, along with the encouragement that we are having in India of the renewable as well as solar energy. So internet connectivity has been improvised. The civil architecture has been improvised with the IT parks and special economic zones. Electricity has been in abundance as far as because electricity and internet, these are the two key essential part of our infrastructure, and those are being strengthened when you look at the numbers over the course of, I would say, more than 10 years now.
Yeah. And I know from working with you and working with other companies in India, I have never had a challenge with the infrastructure. What about terms of communication, time zone difference? What is it like working with development teams in India? And we know there is a gap, depends where you are in the world, but how do you make it minimize the time zone, work hour differences? What's your experience with that part?
Yeah. Communication, of course, yes, two key points that you asked, communication and time zone difference. Just to let you know that India is, after US, is the highest speaking populated country in the world after US. I think more than approximately 250 million people speak English in India. Yes, the accent is not that mark of matching the states or other countries. However, it is in a very neutral accent, which means it can be easily understandable. And our school, as well as the university, is in the English medium majority, and which means we are comfortable with the English from the very beginning of our professional career. And in terms of time zone difference, it is a challenge which is beyond control. We cannot completely fix it. However, depending on the work profile, for example, if you look at the support centers, so support center employees, they usually work in the night shift of India time to overlap with 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time, American time. And in terms of development profiles, we usually have anywhere between 2 to 4 hours of overlap with American time zones from Pacific to East Coast. So that overlap is sufficient for us to make sure that we have a two-way conversation with those US counterparts to make sure that things are being handled smoothly. And their profile usually would not encourage to work beyond a certain time in the night because that requires an active mind, logical mind to think and solve those problems. That's why support profile is usually a very straightforward profile wherein the structure is defined, wherein the resolution template is also defined. So support is usually which is happening in the night shift in India to overlap with 100% with the American time zone. And in the development profile, usually 2 to 4 hours of overlap is being provided to match to as a workaround for this problem, which is beyond our control.
Yeah, I've always seen the teams that I've worked with in India, they're always willing to stay up later or stay up in my time zone. And then with that 4 hour overlap, that gives us quite enough time to work together.
Yes.
Now, diving into some of the skepticism challenges people may have, what are some most common misconceptions you've encountered about outsourcing to India? What do you hear? What are people saying? I'm sure some of them are really funny, but go ahead.
And I've heard about a lot of misconceptions, which I believe are fairly informed or pre-assumptions. I've heard a lot of them, but just to give you very common ones, do you guys do video call? Are you guys open for video call? Would the infrastructure or internet support video call? Would there be any language barrier? Do your people speak English or not? Then they say, okay, what about the work quality? Like in the costs are low. Does that mean the work quality would also be low? And then about how about the data security? Are credentials, data, everything is secure, or how would you gonna handle them? Yeah, obviously there are cultural differences. So I think their concerns are valid because they are planning to rely on an unknown vendor sitting thousands of miles away from them. Concerns are valid. Yeah, if addressed properly, I think it's just a matter of educating them to clarify about those misconceptions and like, in a manner wherein it's a win proposition for both the parties.
Just a couple more questions around that one because you clarified that a lot, and that was interesting what they think and what are people's misconceptions. But I know one thing I do hear about is cultural differences. India has different cultural differences than we do here in the United States. What are some of those, and how have you mitigated for those, or is it even something to worry about?
Now, cultural difference is definitely a big thing. You raised a very good point, Steve. This is a really big thing wherein talk about the Indian working style. It's more of communication itself. It's more of an indirect, more of a polite approach as compared to American work culture, which is more of a direct communication. Wherein if it's a no in America, it's a straight no. But in India, somehow in our upbringing, we have been programmed in a manner where a direct no could possibly offend the person at the other side, which means we need to be cautious while saying no to them. And that at times create problem wherein out of compulsion, we are not saying no to the unrealistic expectations. And if we are raising or setting the wrong expectations, it becomes problematic. So I, as a person, try to cater to this kind of problem in my team and try to understand about being candid. No is not offensive as far as we are with candid and supporting it appropriate manner. But the positive part of this is that this makes us pretty flexible. Wherein, as you said a few minutes ago, that when you have seen people from India working a little late to accommodate to the overlapping needs, that means we are in a way flexible, caring of those people that, okay, if these people are also staying awake little late in the night or coming online to have conversation with us early mornings, daytime, that means we also need to equally share that responsibility, be available little late for them to make sure that there is no communication gap. So that is one of the biggest factor, I believe, a part of the cultural difference. And then other than that, I think it's just a matter of communication. That's the major difference that I would say.
Yeah, I felt that teams in India, such as yourself, that I've worked with, they know the sacrifices that we may make to be with them, and they make the same way, and they're very courteous people. They're always trying to help
Right.
out. That's great. Now, talk a little bit about, I know I've heard this before, quality assurance. How do you manage that? Is that a big problem? What suggestions do you have? How would you provide feedback to that for people that are worried about the quality of the product that you're building for them?
Well, the concern about quality is very valid, but it is limited to only those scenarios wherein your focus with outsourcing is purely price based. So in case if you make your vendors or potential vendors to compete purely on the pricing, then yes, there are chances for the quality to take a hit. However, if you decide to not go too cheap and remain economic, in that case, with the help of right resources and the right process in place, the quality is no longer an issue because now you have deployed the right team members who are experienced, who are skilled, and who paid fairly. So that way they work in the project to make sure that the project gets delivered right in the first attempt. Unless you compete on pricing, unless you make your vendors compete on pricing, quality would not be a challenge with the right resources in place. And of course, backed by the right process.
No, I like that. If you're outsourcing to India to get the cheapest price, the cheapest resources, then that's a concern.
Yes.
But if you're trying to get the good quality, but still have a good affordability compared to what you get in the United States, you just need to look out for that. Data security, you brought that up earlier about data security. How can people protect themselves as they outsource to India for the data security and privacy? What suggestions do you have for them?
There are a lot of measures in place that every standard organization would be having specifically to the data security and privacy. Depending on the project requirement, I could literally talk in detail about it, but I have to give you a quick brief about the key pointers that we need to take care about is the very first thing is make sure that you sign an appropriate NDA and a contract with the team members, with the agency that you work with in India. And once that is in place, The organization's responsibility is to make sure that only relevant team members have access to that set of data and not the involved member of the project. Which means, giving an example, there are any sensitive data that we are supposed to access. The responsibility lies on us that only the tech leads who are responsible to put code to that particular environment have access to that section of the project, and not everyone else is having access to that section of the project. Again, this is a part of the project process. Then followed by, of course, there need to be right training and awareness within the team members so they understand the sensitivity that they are handling with. And in certain projects, I've also seen wherein we, the team from India, do not get access to the broad environment at all, wherein our limitations and until the UAT environment, we work on the dev environment, push it to the UAT environment. Once that is done, then our US counterparts, our client partners, they tech leads, they would take our work and move it to the broad environment. So that way we are not having any access to the production data. So we work on the sanitized database with dummy data and not the real. That means we are not having any access to whatsoever sensitive information. And in terms of our infrastructure, we also have firewalls in place. So even, so all the systems that we have in office, they are connected with internet, obviously with the firewall in place. So no unauthorized access can happen in our network systems. And these are the standard procedures. And then I'm not sure if we also have a biometric attendance system in place as well. So not anybody can just walk into any part of our office unless they have the biometric register in our company's database. So starting from a simple biometric registration to accessing the sanitized database, limiting their access to specific section of the project, and training of the employees. These are the general measures. And I think one more point is even during the employment, while signing up the employment offer letter, this is also in one of the clauses that usually any standard employer would have with their employees. Whatever access that you have during the tenure with this organization, that remains absolutely confidential, and you cannot create any personal copy or share it with any of external IDs which are not a part of the organization unless in written approved by the client.
Yeah, thank you for thoroughly explaining that part for companies. One more before we get into the benefits, because I do want to talk about the benefits of outsourcing to India. Any recommendations, because I know this is a concern for some of the engineering managers, is setting the right client expectations, correct project management. Any advice you give on how to properly manage a remote project with India to make sure it's successful?
Two key factors, like they're obviously like a success rate of 100% is practically not feasible. There obviously would be mistakes that we need to learn and evolve over the course of time. And we did the same as we grew up in the last 11.5 years and learned from our mistakes. And I could say two key factors that impact such things, like make sure that you have documentation in place, whether it be, make sure it's a proper documentation, whether it be starting from NDA and contract, the project scope of work requirement documentation, the ticketing system, which obviously would involve the acceptance criteria in the tickets as well. And then there are some other additional documentation, like I'm not sure if knowledge transfer documentation. So if the project is large and if there are people who are moving out of the project and we need to have a replacement of the resources. So there need to be a proper knowledge transfer documentation as well. And at the end, it needs to be a proper project handover documentation. So once the project is successfully delivered, handover document is an essential part of our delivery process that helps client to understand all the aspects are being appropriately delivered. And once that documentation part is being taken care of, then I believe clear communication is also helping those clients to handle the project management in a very clear manner that communicate clearly. And when I say communicate clearly, it is not just about the project requirement communication. It is beyond that as well. Giving you an example, holiday calendar. In India, we follow a different holiday calendar, which is obviously different than American. So we need to clearly communicate about our holidays to make sure that they are aware about that. So usually that gets sent when the contract is signed, followed by when the team is working on it. So we follow the principle of 4-1, which means we will intimate them 4 weeks ago about our upcoming holidays. A reminder is sent 2 weeks ago, another reminder 1 week ago. For example, 15th October or 16th October would be festival of here, which is obviously not the case in America, which is just another day over there. It is our responsibility to make sure that we remind them about those dates. So there's no critical dependencies on the team in India, which is supposed to be on those one. So that way the team also enjoys their work, also enjoy their holidays without any impact on the client's work. And clients should also be aware about, in terms of communication, we should also make them aware about the hierarchy that, okay, this is the hierarchy, the team structure that we have. And in case of any escalations, they should be knowing, or in case of any business critical issues, they should be having an absolute level of clarity that they are key point of contact or anything that off tracks. So it's not just about limiting those communication aspects only to the project scoping or the ticketing, also beyond those factors that I just briefed about.
No, appreciate that. I think everybody appreciates that. That's a good, thorough way of managing the project remotely, especially with India. So we've gone through some concerns some that people may have, how to address them. Positives. What are some unique advantages that engineering managers get by outsourcing to India?
Unique would be like, obviously there are a lot of advantages, but if it comes to unique, I think I mentioned that earlier. It's the flexibility and adaptability of, which is a usual part of the Indian culture. That is one of the unique aspect that I would say, that adaptability to learn, to pick, to room, to pivot. That adaptability is one of the unique factors, especially which is a cultural thing for Indians. And another advantage, I would not say it's a unique one. Obviously, a lot of other countries would also be doing, but I believe another good advantage that we are in a position is the supporting government policies, wherein government is helping to encourage this IT exports.
Yes, I see the government supporting that. That is a big deal,
It-
as well as the flexibility. What about advantages and scaling your business with India? Are there any advantages on the ability to quickly scale?
In a way, like how? I didn't get that.
Oh, are there any advantages on being able to scale quickly the development team with India? Does India have any advantages that allow us to do that more easily than anywhere else?
Yeah, they're obviously, as I said, like the numbers are big here. Comes to talented resources, which means you can easily scale up the team to meet any type of tight deadlines for your project, which are time critical. So one of the key advantage obviously is to easily scale up because we have availability of talented. And other than that, I believe it's again the flexibility to adapt. When we become part of any project, we know, based on the right process that is being followed, we very well know the roadmap of the project, which means the team members, the involved stakeholders are aware about the direction of the project and the speed with which they need to deliver. If the speed that they need to deliver require more manpower, those can be pulled in to speed up the things. For example, if a project is supposed to be delivered in 8 calendar months by 2 developers, the same project can be delivered 4 developers in maybe 5 calendar months, provided it is technically feasible. So, right amount of skilled manpower available to be utilized in proper manner, and scaling up the team quickly.
Yeah, and I think that gives us room also for companies to innovate, right? Where you can parallel effort, skill, innovation, more features faster. That's a good benefit from outsourcing as well as from India that gives you that opportunity. Do you have any examples of successful companies that have outsourced to India that you've worked with, that you heard about, international clients? Do you have any examples that you could share with us?
Oh, a lot. We are a mid-sized company. And I have to give our example. Like we work with one of the Fortune 50 companies, entity Docomo, for 1.5 year, wherein we augmented their team's capability with the help of our engineering team. So entity Docomo's team was sitting in Japan and San Francisco, and our engineering team was plugged into their existing project from India. That's one example that I could recall right now. And from international perspective, as far as the big names are concerned, and a lot of Indian companies like Infosys, and which employs more than 100,000 people. They are working with Procter and Gamble for many years. TCS, they are working with General Electric for many years. They have been working with Jaguar and Land Rover as well. It's a different story that now Tata's have acquired it. Before acquisition, they were working with them. So a lot of big companies. HCL is working with Volvo for many years. So relying on its engineering talent. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. And there's many cases you said. Now, before we get into last segment here, and these are so good questions. You're doing a great job answering them in detail. What trends you see in outsourcing to India happening in the next couple of years, next coming years? What trends can we expect? What are you thinking may happen?
As we speak right now, one of the largest trends that I see would be the green IT and sustainability initiatives, wherein people are becoming more cautious about the consumption and the global warming aspect. So a lot of tree plantation drive has been happening to try and meet our goal by 2050 of becoming a carbon neutral country. That's not just limited to this industry, but overall, we have to talk about the Indian IT specific industry, then I would say the adoption of AI and ML and adoption of automation. These are the two key things that we're going to drive upcoming decade, because in fact, we have adopted a lot of AI and automation in our, not just the workflows, but also in our project deliverables as well, and seen some initial efficiency in our project delivery. So AI and ML, along with the adoption of automation, is what I see in the coming 5 years that would pick up from IT outsourcing standpoint. And in general, the green and sustainability initiatives overall.
I would agree. That has a lot of work coming out with need for innovation, need for speed, and India is a good partner for that. Now, you have your own outsourcing company. So going into last segment here and how to choose the right outsourcing partner, like the right. So what key factors would the company should consider when choosing an outsourcing partner in India?
India is full of such IT outsourcing companies who obviously, it's a very crowded market, I would say, wherein everybody claims to be, or I would say self-claiming to be the best IT company. And it is difficult to choose from such a noisy, crowded market. So keeping things pretty simple and just stick to the basics. Number one, do a proper background check. How? Simply check with their couple of past client references from based on their claim. If they say they have worked clients from, let's say, Sweden, Norway, America, UK, or anywhere, and just ask them for the client references and validate their authenticity. That's the best thing that I could talk about. Other than that, once the credibility is established, then take a look at the depth of understanding that they have displayed in their proposal. That would give you an insight about how much committed they are into the project. How the better the level of understanding, the better it is, the easy it is for you to work with them. And that can happen only when you review their scope of work that they have submitted, or if you review the proposal that they have submitted. Then talk with them about their process. What kind of process do they follow? Talk more and more questions around it, because that way, in fact, multiple of our clients have done it. One of our clients was having a project manager sitting remotely in India. He actually flew the project manager to visit us in our office and She took entire day to understand our process. We had good conversation, lunch, everything together. And she was very impressed the way process was running. So having credibility check, reviewing their level of understanding, the depth of understanding, reviewing their process, these are the key factors, I would say. And for me as a person, like I'm more of a human oriented person. So maybe an additional tip on this point would be communicate with their founder and see if the wavelength matches. Could be on many factors. Both could be dog lovers or both could be concerned about non-profits or maybe common interests. So try to talk with their founder and see if the wavelength matches to work with them.
That's great feedback. How important, in addition to those 2 points, is to look at outsourcing of their the outsourcing firm's track record and client testimonials? Is that a big deal?
It,
How much weight should the engineering managers put on that?
very big deal. Like in the past client testimonials and the track record. That means there are lots of opportunities there. So how the company is treating its existing clients, that track record is absolutely essential. If their success rate is not, if they are purely focused on money and just getting the new clients and not serving the existing clients, means their track record is not, even though they will be having regular cash flow, but if the track record of successful deliveries is not good, not worth it, which is quite obvious. And of course, if they have their clients as their brand ambassadors, that is what a win proposition that you should be looking into. That these guys really invest themselves into the project, and that's what their clients are saying about them. You get that impression, you are lucky to find the right partner.
Great feedback. Only a few more questions. I was thinking of which questions can I cut, but you're doing such a great job providing so much detail that I'm gonna keep going. We only have 3 more here I have. What are your recommendations for ensuring a smooth collaboration with the Indian outsourcing partner?
Communication, just one word, communication. That is the core of the problem, and that is the core of the solution as well. Do not leave any assumptions or any doubts. I strongly encourage my team members here as well as our partners as well. We do not have luxury to meet in person and discuss things regularly. So please communicate in as much clear manner as you can. And I've also asked the team members to rephrase things that they have not understood. So for a smoother collaboration, communication is the key, not just for the projects, but also making them aware about our planned vacations or planned holidays. They know that about our unavailability. Understand that and they can plan their go live dependencies accordingly. Communication is the core part when dealing with Indian IT outsourcing part. Because you don't communicate well from both sides, it's a recipe of mess.
I like that. That is a good communication between the teams that will facilitate in-house relationships, partnering. You've been tremendous. This has been a great session. You've given the audience such a great overview. Any last words you want to leave with the team, with the community, recommendations you want to make about choosing the right outsourcing partner, outsourcing to India? Any thoughts?
Sure. India is a very big country, is a very diverse country in terms of culture, in terms of work ecosystem, in terms of lots of things. So give some time to any partner you choose to work with. And if the progress is good, give them timely feedback, give them constructive feedback, respectful, but be candid. So while providing even the criticism, because that is good for the improvisation of overall process and be candid in providing that feedback would be the key thing for long-term relationship. So they improvise. And if they don't improvise, then look for the option. Because as I said, it's a vast country full of different cultural aspects, people, and you could find any type of service people based on the pricing you are willing to pay. So do not make them compete on pricing, make them compete on quality, because there are really good vendor partners in India that you can find to compete on quality and deliver outcomes for your business.
Ashish, thank you so much for sharing those invaluable insights with us today. For all the listeners, for those who are going to be listening to this podcast, we hope this discussion made it very clear on the benefits, the concerns you may have, and addressing those as you think about outsourcing in India. Remember that finding the right partner is important, focusing on quality over price, and then communication. Those are some great principles amongst many that you've laid out for us today. So I appreciate Ashish for your time. You're a very valuable expert. You have amazing company. Hopefully, we'll be able to interview your CTO as well. He is a Drupal open source expert, which would be an invaluable discussion for us
Right.
at the Engineering Manager podcast.
He's
So
excited.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. He's excited as well to have a conversation with you and to share his.
So audiences will be tuning out for now, but thank you, and we'll see you next time.